I want to welcome everyone to our October board meeting, and we have one of our seniors, Nicholas Maxwell, here tonight. He's going to open us in prayer and also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Everyone, please bow your heads. God, thank you for letting everyone be here and come to this meeting today, Lord. Please be with everyone here and help them make the right decisions and give them the right path, the right thoughts, Lord, and help them be a voice for the school and for this county, Lord. Thank you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Next on our agenda is the consent items, consisting of the agenda, minutes of the September 10th, 2019 meeting, an overnight field trip, FCCLA Fall Rally Competitions in Perry, Georgia, overnight field trip, FCCLA Fall Leadership Conference, Covington, Georgia, overnight field trip, U.S. Space and Rocket Center, Huntsville, Alabama, and middle school fundraisers. And also policy for revision. Thank you. The LDAJ, LDAJA relations with police department, police interrogations, and investigations.
Mr. Chair, I have a discussion on the letter. Can we hold that out and go through the rest of it?
The policy for revision,
Mm.
we can remove that. Okay? We'll make that motion.
I will, but I can't support the motion because I just received my package tonight, and that would be, I can make the motion legally and not vote for it.
That's
but
right. You
I'd
can.
rather not.
Okay. All right, I make a motion that we leave out the policy for revision and accept all other consent items.
Second.
Second by Ms. Barksdale. All in favor? All opposed?
Just abstain
One abstain.
because of just receiving the agenda.
And what we'll do is when we get to the policies, we'll bring that back up for discussion. All right, we have no public participation, correct?
Sir, I'll go check to make sure. No, sir.
So this time we want to honor our Teacher of the Years. Teachers of the Year.
Oh, it's in there.
Thanks.
Unfortunately, one of our teachers of the year, the high school teacher of the year, Miss Lively, went home sick today, which is unfortunately part of it. If Jason and Christy would step forward, please. Again, high school teacher of the year this year was Crystal Lively. She is unfortunately not with us tonight. Jason Bond, elementary principal of the year. Congratulations, Ryan. Congratulations, middle school teacher of the year and district. Y'all want to pose for a picture?
Yes.
On Friday, October 4th, which was a teacher work day, we had a luncheon and had a nice program with a lot of the family there to be able to support them and to be able to provide a true ceremony for a Teacher of the Year event. So. Okay, congratulations. This is for 2021 Teacher of the Year.
Thanks to all of you for all you do. And we don't want to punish you now by making you sit through a board, so feel free to leave if you so desire. Next on the agenda is our financials. Ms. Buffett.
All right, believe it or not, we are actually through with 25% of our fiscal year, 3 months down. So you can see the first page being our revenues. Taxes are still low, we've talked about that. Tax bills have gone out now, so we should be getting in a little bit of revenue, but we should definitely by December see that figure climb quite a bit. A couple of them look a little odd. The second line there is 47% collected. That is not actually intangible recording tax and real estate transfer tax. There's also an account number that falls within those 1120 to 1190, that's forest land protection. You remember when we passed the millage rate, they actually took that off the 5-year history this year. That is a separate payment from the state. We received last year's payment in this year, so that includes $16,525 of that forest land protection. That's why it looks a little high at this point. The other one that looks high is the impact aid and flood control. The $3,900 that we budgeted is actually for flood control. Unfortunately, that amount this year is only going to be $828.91. But we have already collected the second payment on our 2018 impact aid, which was $19,430. So that figure looks a little out of whack with its budget right now. And when we amend the budget, we will amend it for that second payment on the impact aid from last year, and hopefully this year's impact aid payment when we receive it. But even with that, we've got 16.63% on our revenues, a little bit lower. I look back at last year, this time we were at 17.34, but that's still right in line with where we should be on our revenues. So I think we're fine on that. Our expenditures all look in line also. There are a few that are higher than 25% due to some dues and fees and some software and insurance items that have to be paid early in the year, so it makes it look a little out of whack. But it's still, we are well under the 25% at 23.22%. So that all the expenditures look good. Cash in the bank, we've got about $2,050,000 in the bank. And our fund equity is at 1.2 million. Last month it was 1.5, and you know, if you've noticed, each month it goes down about 250 to 300,000 until we get those tax revenues coming in. So that again is about normal for this year. The next is just the summary showing you the beginning fund balance, the revenues, the expenditures, and how it comes down to the ending fund balance. The next schedule is the SPLOST collections. You can see we are above our 50,000 budgeted figure again. I added the first 3 months of this year and the first 3 months of last year, and it's not quite 10,000. It's about 9,752 higher than last year. So our SPLOST is looking good. We have higher collections. We're still not sure why, but we're not going to complain about it. So it looks good. On our SPLOST summary, you can see that I have already made, or as of September 30th, we made the bond payment that was due on October 1st for bond interest. Paid that all out of the SPLOST account, so that reduced that to $249,000. We've got $379,000 in our bond tax, giving us a total of $628,000 toward that payment that's going to be due April 1st of $1.1 million. I did look, just a note to the board, compared the figures to last year, and the TAVT, the title ad valorem tax, is lower than last year by a good bit. So I don't know, the state changed the formula for how they're reimbursing us on that, and it seems to be a lot lower in the bond fund. So I'm going to kind of follow up on that and see what those differences are, and if there's anything we can do about it. I don't think there is, but I just want to make sure the formulas are looking like they're correct. On the capital projects fund, no big change there. We haven't identified any projects, so we've still got $52,477 available for projects. And then we have our quarterly reports on our principal's activity accounts. These are the ones that are in June. The elementary school started the quarter with 52,644.51, took in about 5,000 of receipts, dispersed about 26,000, so they wound up with an ending balance of 31,140.62. On the middle school, they started with 70,702.84, took in 29,000, paid out 53,000, wound up with 46,228.03 for their ending balance. Excuse me. The principal's activities and clubs started with 50,597.84, took in 56,515, expended 54,329, and ended their ending balance was 52,783.82. And on the athletic summary, they started with 34,762.43, took in 13,950, expended 26,000. And you can see there are a lot of transfers in and out there to come up with that ending balance of 22,641.76. We're trying to separate each of the sports out so we can see from year to year how much we're spending on each individual sport, as opposed to lumping them all just into general athletics. And so what we did was transfer money to cover the sports that either don't take in income or don't take in enough to cover them, to start them out at zero at the beginning of the year, so that we can then accumulate for next year and show those expenditures and give us an idea of what sports are making money and how much they're making.
Explain that again, please.
Okay, just for an example, look at your general athletics account.
Okay.
All right, you see it started with, let's see, 10,000.
Right.
And we took in a little bit, 884. We spent 6,000, so that left us with that 5535. Rather than leaving it in there and showing a negative balance in some of the other accounts, like middle school baseball, for example,
Okay.
we transferred the money into the negative accounts so that they start the year out at zero. So that when we start, because this is June 30th, so when they start 7/1, they'll start at zero. And then we'll accumulate the expenditures for next year, and then we can know, exactly from year to year how much we're spending on each sport. So you can see the transfers out are the ones that made money, like the basketball concession just went to basketball. The football and the general athletics covered the rest of the sports. The soccer is actually a split between soccer and track, because those were combined last year and we never did give track its share. So we took part of the soccer and gave it to track to even it out from the beginning balance.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Whose decision and on what basis, and was the money, this makes no sense to me, because was the money brought in at concessions, tickets, or what, and how? Never mind, it'll never be explained where I can understand. How do you just?
Well, it's just, they were just trying to keep track of the sports expenses. So like before, we didn't
Yeah, but when you
have-
start a new year
Uh-huh.
in the corporate world, when you start a new year, you're at a balance, and if you have leftover, then on your spreadsheet, it shows that this was brought over from the previous year.
Mhm.
So that could be shown as well. So why was it necessary to transfer money to a negative account, and for what justification? I just don't understand the accounting
Because
reason.
Let's see if Dr. Gumby,
So in previous years, athletics paid for all the equipment and the jerseys. So now we want to see how much it costs if the team had to buy the jerseys. So the true cost
Oh, okay.
of running the program, which includes uniforms. So that's a big expense for most of those teams, so they will wind up in the hole. But just to get a true picture of how much it costs to support each program.
Okay, that's what should have been said. Okay, thank you. So
So-
it's about a team supporting itself from day
Just
one
wanted
with
to see that.
uniform, equipment, et cetera, and so on.
and this is going forward, it's not, and that's why you try to zero it out.
Right.
to
That
do
makes
it for this
sense.
coming year.
Not showing the negative balances, correct.
Well, they weren't zeroing out the accounts. The other accounts had negative balances, as I understand it. So now everybody's on a level playing field, so to speak. Is that what?
See, so you wouldn't have known several years ago, because general athletic was like 60,000. So you wouldn't have known how much of that was spent for middle school uniforms unless you look further into the actual budget. This now shows this is what it's costing each sport if they had to pay their own officials, buy their own jerseys and the equipment.
Okay, now that you said that, it sparks my memory to a previous conversation a few years back where that something similar to that was said. Patty shaking her head, so I'm remembering correctly then. I remember now. Thank you.
So general athletics is still going to cover a lot of this because some of them, like tennis, no revenue, no concession. So if we buy
Right.
uniforms, they would always be in the hole.
Exactly. I understand that now. Thank you.
Do any of them make money other than football?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Soccer use.
Soccer and basketball,
Mhm.
basically.
I think uniforms, it just depends on when uniforms were bought. You know, kind of what throws it off. Officials for soccer is very expensive. I think you have to have 3, and of course they pay them, I think they're the most expensive. And for a season, I think we had 18, maybe 9 home games, so that's a lot in past to pay for officials and uniforms.
And uniforms have to be bought with the money that is made from these sports. It can't be taxpayer money, correct?
That's correct. So this is generated through ticket taking, and again, mostly through football, where the largest sum of the money comes from. That's why we split out in general athletics.
Because football is the biggest generator of
That's
funds.
correct, that's correct.
And the other sports, it's no fault of their own
Correct.
that people in Lincoln County don't go to tennis games or soccer games or track meets.
But tennis, of
Or-
course, no
or-
admissions, no concession.
Right,
So everything
tennis
is an
doesn't have
expense. That is
anything. I
correct.
remember Randy,
All
Mr.
expense.
Smith came in to us years ago. But until we get into the mindset that there's other sports, those sports will suffer from gates, except for tennis.
Okay, anything else for Ms. Bucky? Great, thank you. We'll move on to our local board governance training plan.
Usually at the October meeting, we try to set the trainings for the local board and actually come up with a plan for our local board governance. This year, we have done it a little bit different because we had whole board training on the 24th of July when we did the superintendent's evaluation training. So those 3 hours have been accomplished already. That leaves us with 6 hours left. Now, it is obviously the board's decision, but the board could do 6 hours of training that they choose. They could go online, they could have GSBA come here, they could participate with Wilkes County again. All of those options are open, but the board is not required to do whole board training twice in 1 year. You don't have to do that one time. So that's been accomplished. So as the board sees fit, we need 6 more hours for everybody.
I think it's really good if we can do, we need to have the date that can work for everybody.
Sure.
To have the, if we can't do it, if that date doesn't go along with Wilkes, then we do it like we did last year, just on our own.
Yes, sir, we can do it either way.
What months, looking ahead, is best for everyone? Make it work.
What dates do y'all have? Dr. Light told me on the phone the other day that he had some dates.
Actually, what I asked on the phone was for you to bring your dates so
Well,
that we would not
and I made that
identify.
very clear to you, that as a minister of the gospel and as an activist that travels around this country, I would do my best. But as I have told you on previous occasions, and this entire board, God, my father's my boss, so I don't know when I gotta go. So I'll be there when I can get there. If y'all don't like it, take it up with him.
And I-
So.
And I
we
want that
basically
on
just
the
decide-
record in the minutes, because I said this for the last 3 years. They said I didn't say it, but I found where I did say it because I went back through some previous board meetings on the thing.
So basically, we just set the dates like we want. and
Okay.
Some of us will be here.
Okay, we can do that.
Do, based on that, you know, want to try to do it with Washington? I
That's
mean,
fine.
cost-wise, it would be cheaper for our county.
It's usually May, isn't it?
Theirs
Yes,
is
the first
usually early May.
Normally in early May, like the first week in May.
That's fine with me.
Does May mess up your schedule at all? Do you know if there's anything scheduled for you in May?
Yeah, well, it's always scheduled. What are y'all talking about in May?
The first week in May when
In Washington. usually
Washington
does
Wilkes normally does
theirs.
theirs.
And I done told y'all a million times, that's the month I got married. My husband is not retired. I told y'all this last
So
time.
May is
So
definitely out. Then-
May out. I'm gonna
Okay.
be somewhere.
Then let's push it back to
But y'all go
March.
ahead and have it, because, do it when y'all want to, because as I had to pay for mine this time, and it didn't break my bank, because y'all so corrupt. So I'll pay for it again if I have to, but don't, I ain't got time for this. Let's just move on.
That's- I mean, that's the facts of it.
Look, let's just
So
skip the
let's
facts,
just
because you're gonna do
plan
what you
for
want, you're gonna lie later,
Okay.
so let's just
I
move
will try
on.
and get the date as soon as I can from
Okay.
Washington.
All right.
I'll also explain to them that we only need the 6 hours, we don't need the whole board, so.
Okay, next on the agenda is the radios.
Yes, sir. We were with Southern Link for a number of years and continued to have problems with Southern Link and to be able to communicate between the schools, between the buses, et cetera. Southern Link had come in and sold us new radios, sold us new phone radio combinations. They came in and wanted to mount a booster in the high school and middle school because there was a lot of spots that it would not work in those areas. That booster was supposed to cost us $5,000. At that point, I felt like at $1,500 a month plus an additional $5 and all that we've gone through and not had communication between us as we see fit, it was time to get them to do something. They continued to make a lot of promises, but nothing changed. After we had a meeting in here with them again, we simply cut the ties on September 4 and said enough's enough. They cannot promise us communication. That's what we have to have between the schools. So we cut the ties with Southern Link. Now, prior to cutting the ties, we communicated with Casey Broom and the County Sheriff's Department to talk about how they communicate. They use just the radios. They use a Kenwood radio. Now, we're going to be on a different frequency, but we're going to recommend the Kenwood radios. Up 79 is always an issue. Into Elbert County is always an issue. When we were demoing the radios that we got from Gumby Communications, Fred was standing right in front of me and was able to communicate with, is his name John?
Floyd Turner.
Right, I'm thinking of the Mr.
John
Gumby up
Gumby.
in Toccoa that you talked to
Right,
on the
John.
radio right in front of me, and then you talked to Floyd Turner when he was driving on 79.
Right.
The coverage on those radios was amazing compared to what we had with Southern Link. So I quickly tried to figure out how much it would cost, started looking at what we needed, and tried to figure out how to pay for it, obviously. So in front of you is a list of the radios and who's going to use one or who's going to have one under their care. The elementary school is going to get 21, middle school gets 9, the high school gets 11, and those lists of who those are going to go to are there in front of you. Maintenance is going to have 4, the bus shop gets 2, we have 5 for spare buses in case something goes wrong, and the Board of Ed, of course, is going to have 3. So that's a total of 55 of the standard radios. If you look on the invoice, there's also 22 that are going to be mounted in the buses. So the buses will have their own mounted radio, and then the handhelds are the 55. Now, as I explained in the document in front of you, the way we're going to pay for this is we're going to take, obviously, the money that was budgeted at $1,500 a month. We're going to use that towards paying for these radios. We have the safety grant money that we talked about last month. We're going to take $15,000 out of that, and then we're going to take some money out of the transportation funds to be able to pay for these. having us the ability to just communicate within the schools and with the buses is gonna be huge. I think it's gonna actually confuse the administrators because they haven't been able to do that. Miss Burt and Patty, Miss Arthur is going to be extremely happy just to be able to get on the radio and talk to somebody besides themselves. So looking very forward to this purchase and looking very forward to getting this moving forward.
Mr. Chair, can you direct the superintendent? Unfortunately, it was left out of my package, those two documents.
It was on the
It's
stack
on your
right in
desk.
front of you, but I'll be more than happy to give you mine.
I put it in here. I don't know where it happened.
There's that one. It was sitting right up here because I set it up there. I'm not sure where it went, but you can have it.
These radios work on the towers also.
Yes, sir.
Antennas.
There will be a, I think they call it a repeater or a booster that will be mounted on the tower out at the mountain. Now, the county will charge us a minimal fee, somewhere between $200 and $500 a month to have that tower up there and the electricity running off of that for that booster. So that would be the only continual cost to us after we pay for these radios.
And that booster will also help the county, right?
Yes, I believe, well, ours will be hooked up to UHF and theirs is VHF. So
Okay.
like I said, we're on a different frequency. So no, it really won't help the county.
Mr. Chair, what's the amount that the bus shop is contributing transportation?
You got that breakdown?
Let's see, we had $1,500 a month plus 15, which is about $15,000 that we'll have to put towards that. It'll be $15,000 out of the safety grant, which would be a total of 30, minus the 43, so it would be 13,000 and some change that the transportation will be putting forth.
So from a budget standpoint, everything's covered with it?
Yes, sir.
And what's wrong with the old ones? I didn't understand.
The old ones, we could not communicate at all. We could not get standard communication between the middle school and the high school even at different times, depending on where they were standing at the middle school. And I actually took a Southern Link rep with Miss Burt to the middle school and walked in those halls and said, you communicate, maybe we're doing it wrong. And then he explained we just need to turn off the Wi-Fi. Well, we did that and it didn't work. We turned on the Wi-Fi, it didn't work. We did that when he was here.
How long had we had their services?
I believe it started in 2014 when Dr. Campbell signed the contract, if I remember correctly.
So from 2014 to 2019,
We
y'all
continued,
just noticing this?
no ma'am, we continued to work with them and tried to provide some type of communication. We got new handhelds, we got new phones, we added a booster, we went through the Wi-Fi communication piece. We've done multiple things trying to make this work. They even added towers. So we were
But-
trying to work with them and tried to make this work, and they could never make it work.
But obviously it didn't work, correct?
That's correct.
So you kept giving them year after year after year. That's but 2014, depending on what month you did the contract, is close to 5 years.
And we continued.
So they wasted 5 years of money?
I disagree with that. We tried to make it work with that company, and at different points, some of it did work.
To what extent?
I can't answer that question.
Was our students, was our buses, was the communication in jeopardy? Because now you're saying it's perilous and it's very important to discontinue and go to a system that works. So my concern is, if it was broke, why didn't we fix it sooner?
Well, because we tried to work with Southern Link and
But why you try
make
to work with somebody when you give them 5 years? You don't give somebody 5 years of taxpayers' money. I just have an issue with that, but it's my issue because I believe in being good stewards of people's money. Obviously, we don't share the same opinion.
I disagree with you, but that's okay.
It's okay to agree and disagree.
Yes, ma'am.
It's kind of like the cell phones. Mine works about half the time.
Yes,
But
sir.
yet I have to pay for it.
That's correct.
Well, I was with a company, mine didn't work, so I left them. I don't stay and pay people money and waste my money and my time. Only, I fit to say, but anyway, that's just not good business sense to me.
But we
Maybe it
have
is.
this in front of us for now. As you see, Ms. Bufford, you see all the different aspects of the finances on it, and you feel that's gonna be, I mean, the way it's covered through there, so. And how soon will they be able to start with this?
We're hoping to have this up and running in February. I'm sorry, in November. I apologize. November. Sorry about that. November, sorry about that.
So as you see, we have to approve or disapprove.
Did anybody else, Mr. Chair, one last question, did anybody else check out this system besides the one incident that the superintendent told us about?
The schools actually had radios that they test drove to make sure that they would work in
So
all
it
of
was
those
checked
places.
by people in the school system?
Yes,
That
ma'am.
was my
We did
question. Yes or no? Thank you. That's a lot of money, Mr. Chair, for some radios. And we've denied helping people who need things in the school system. But if it's gonna be safety, I guess, we want safety. And
Yes,
that's,
Mr. Scott.
I'm speaking at the moment. I have relinquished the floor. So when I finish, you can ask the chair if you can speak. But until then, I hold the floor.
He was asking me, Ms. Franklin.
Okay, but
He
you
looked
don't
right at
ask while
me.
I'm talking, but you don't ask
He
while.
raised his hand.
Yeah,
I
but you
thought you
should-
had finished.
No, I was
So
still
you don't need to
talking.
go off on him, go
I'm
off
not
on
going
me.
off on anybody.
Yes, go off on me if you
I'm
need to
not
go off on
going off on
somebody.
anybody. I'm just saying protocol. All right. So anyway, go ahead,
Mr. Scott?
Mr. Scott.
By state law on a school bus, you gotta have some kind of communication. Either we have a radio or we have to use the phone. So either way, it's gonna cost, if we're gonna buy a cell phone for every driver to have, or these radios will be stationary.
They
on
stay
every
in the bus.
All the route buses, they'll be stationary, and we have spare handheld radios in case that bus is in the shop and they have to use a spare bus. That's what it's for. But every bus has got to have some kind of communication.
Mr. Chair, I thank the Transportation Director for telling us that, but I knew that, and that was going to my other question that I wanted to ask you, because I do know the state law about every communication. I've been on the board for a long time. But my other question was, is this going to suffice every rural area that our buses travel to, north, south, east, west? Because we're a large county. And we got a lot of trees and a lot of dead spots. So is this going to cover and be
What other
suffice?
buses have you done any other routes beside the up through Elton?
We
79?
ran every corner of the county with a mobile unit on the bus, and we could communicate over the county. And we had handhelds, which I think Tony had one in the school. We used the handheld in the school, and they worked there. The Southern links won't work in the school. Some got operated.
But as far as for her question about the buses, it wasn't just up 79, it was
No,
all the different
it was-
routes were checked.
We checked it all over the county, plus we had them when Lincoln had played Abbeville. I talked to them in Abbeville.
So, Mr. Chair, has the principals, I know assistant principal was named, but have the principals also tested these instruments since they're the leaders of our school?
Dr. Gumby and Ms. Arthur, have you tested these?
The new device, no.
Okay.
But again, they were in constant contact with us and telling us that he was driving up to make sure it would check, make sure it worked. Not physically do not have the device.
All right.
Well, they work like when you gotta go to Atlanta on a field trip or Macon or,
If you get two buses going and they together, they can talk back and forth, but I can't talk back to them.
you have to use your cell phone then.
Right.
That just brought
So
up
right,
another
so it, I
question.
mean, because of the frequency, it's gonna be based on, I mean, it will be a base on the different towers that we have then. So probably in Washington,
So we
even
said
in
about
Thompson,
50
as you said, over to Abbeville, in Columbia County, but outside of that.
See, when they brought these for trial, the antenna was just at 80 feet. So it's gonna be higher than that when they come and install it. But we were getting out at Broad River Bridge where Lincoln County Rescue can't even get out. Now, why? But we did, because I took my drive up there.
All right. We have a motion to accept the superintendent's proposal on these radios.
I'll make a motion that we accept.
Okay. We have a second.
A second.
Ms. Barstow, a second. All in favor? Opposed?
Abstain.
Next, before you have a graduation waiver.
Graduation waiver is the House Bill 91 waiver. You can see the name in front of you. Obviously, the community cannot. Dr. Gumby has signed this. He signed it after the board meeting in September. So this one has been approved by Dr. Gumby, and I recommend that we approve it as well.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Have a second by Ms. Barstow. All in favor? Unanimous. Milestones and graduation rate.
We do not have CCRPI data yet. What we do have is milestones and graduation rate. So I thought it would make it easier if we provided some data tonight with milestones and graduation rate, and then as you get CCRPI final data, it should be less of a presentation in November. So Michael, if you would, charge forward, sir, and show us the milestones and results.
All right, so we got the results here. You can find this. This data and information is released already. As I said, there's some data with the CCRPI that is not public, so we can't share it with you. Even y'all can't share it in public form like this. But CCRPI, you will see it before the board meeting. It should be the last component, probably released this week. So within the next 2 weeks, the final CCRPI reports will probably be publicly released before November. But these are the results of the EOG and EOC, the course test, 20% of the students grade, the grade assessments that each student in the state take for 3rd, 5th, 8th, for English, for all 4 academic subjects, and I'm sorry, just 3rd, 4th, and 5th English reading, 5th grade, all 4 core, 6th, and 7th English and math, and then 8th, all 4 core academic subject area, and the 8 high school courses. So you get 4 levels, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Somewhere in level 2 is a 70. When you calculate to a grade of 70, it's not everybody who gets a 2 has a 70, but 70 or correlation of 70 for EOC is within the 2 category. But generally we're looking for 3 or 4 for student level. So here's 3 years worth of data, 17, 18, and 19 for the science. The percent of students that are proficient or above. The grade represents 2019. So grade 5 in science, grade 8 in science, grade 8 in physical science, and you can see, not grade 8 physical science, and our biology scores. So you can see we're at 58%, 29% grade 8, 55% physical science, and 34% in biology. Just again, this percentage of proficient and above, but also that doesn't mean all students that pass. When you get to the high school, when you get to that, or even elementary school, because developing also includes 70. What does proficient actually equate to? Depends on the test. So proficient above could be a 75 above, could be 80 above. That's not particularly the number they give us. Then we get to Math, see we had a lot of strong gains, 74% third grade. You can see fifth grade has 63%, eighth grade 71%, and then you can see what we did in our other core areas of students that are proficient and above. When we get to science, you can see also the percentage of students we had. You can see we're a big gain in physical science in 2019. And when you're looking at 3 years, these are not the same students, so you can't say these are the same students that go up and down. It's a different group every year, of students that are taking the assessment. So you can see we have good gains in physical science, but again, that's a different group of students who are taking that physical science test, not the same students who took it in 2018. Even with physical science, they may not take biology that following next year. So it's kind of hard to equate that because there's a lot of years in between when they take these assessments. Social studies, you can see our levels in 2019, and then you can see where we are in economics, a big gain for that group of those seniors who took the economics assessment and social studies. So you just look in isolation, just saying 3 years. But then on our slide, 2 slides from now, apparently, you see ELA, grade 3, we got 51%, 3 and above. You see in grade 8 and grade 6 had a big jump in the percentage of students, from 25 to 39% the following year. Grade 7, 34%, grade 8, 54%. American Lit held steady in ELA. Again, the students proficient and above. Lexile, as determined by the EOG and EOC Lexile score, you can see what percentage of students in our grades for 2019 are considered to be at grade level or above. 79, 71, 76, 6% grade 6, 85%, 76, 80% for 9th grade Lit students, 79% for the American Lit students. Again, that Lexile is based on what the EOG and EOC measures. All right, and so if you look at that in comparison, just in isolation, but how does that look compared to the CSRA and the state? The highlighted areas are areas where we outperform both RESA and the state. So if you look at we outperform the state and RESA in grade 3 English, grade 3 math. They don't take into account social studies. Grade 4, they exceeded the state and RESA in ELA, almost there, tied almost there with 48 in the mathematics. In grade 5, still beat the RESA in ELA, 63% outperform in math, outperform the state in science, and also outperform the system, the RESA and state in social studies. You see grade 7, great improvement. We were comparing from last year, but they're still outperformed the RESA in ELA and math. Grade 8, we see we outperform. Sorry, grade 7, you see we outperform the RESA in ELA. We outperform the RESA in math. Grade 8, math, ELA, we outperform. In math, we very, very much outperform, and that is only with the math, 8th grade math scores. If we add the algebra students in there, that percentage is even higher. But we just want to compare apples and apples. So that's only 8th grade students for EOG for that math comparison. Seeing science, we're pretty close there with state, and social studies, we're higher. And then in the high school courses, that includes in winter, spring, and summer all combined. And because the state doesn't give us the RESA scores all combined, that's why you only see a system and state comparison. We want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples there. And that includes all our students who took it. And you'll see there, we're doing quite well in a lot of areas. Improvements being made, a lot of things that the system principals are doing to increase our scores, increase our percentage of students at 3 and above. But again, as the state tells you, these scores, just one time a year assessment. It doesn't have, it's not what they do every day. It's just a one-time assessment. So it's a snapshot, but it's not the overall indicator. It's not end all be all of what's going on with our students. But we do like to celebrate the achievements we're making with them. And then lastly, graduation rate. We have another increase. So we continue to increase the 4-year graduation rate, increased by not a full point, but 0.14 of a point. And our 5-year graduation rate increased by 1.65%. So we have great gains in our graduation rate. It's holding steady. It is being consistent, continue to increase, and it's pretty much up there with anyone else in the state and or in the RESA. And next month, we'll go to CCRPI, and the CCRPI is based primarily off of what the students did on the EOC and EOGs. That's for the middle school and elementary school, pretty much 80% of their score, 85% I believe, is pretty much all tied to the EOG. And for the high school, it's around 70%. It's tied to what the students do on the EOG, and the other 30% is based off graduation rate and some other factors. So just a little quick snapshot. You got this probably 2-3 months ago. I slid this under your table there in a table form, but this is a graphic representation of that same data you got about 2 months ago.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, sir.
Next on the agenda is policies for review, and we need to, while we're doing that, we need to put back up and review the LDAJ.
You want to start with that one, sir?
That'd be good.
Okay. Back up to LDAJ/LDAJA. We had,
Well, let's just see what Ms. Freeman's,
okay.
she had something she wouldn't bring that out, so.
I just want clarity on section where you have examples of incidents on the first page.
Yes, ma'am.
And you talk about interviews with law enforcement and authorities,
Yes, ma'am.
but I don't see where there's anywhere where parents were notified prior to this, in this policy.
It's in here, and I'm looking for number.
Number 5, all
Number
attempts to
5.
contact students.
There we go. Number 5. Thank you.
It's on the
Second page.
second page?
Yes, ma'am. Number 5. And then number 7, it mentions
Okay.
parents as well.
Right, but it doesn't answer my question. It doesn't, it just says they'll be documented that they're called. It doesn't say that they have to be present before a police officer can interrogate their minor child.
And they don't have to be present. They can give us consent to do that.
Who gave you consent?
The parent, it says all attempts to contact the student's parents should be documented. And then if the student refuses to speak to law enforcement authorities, the interview may not proceed on school grounds. So if we call a parent, we can't get the parent, and the student refuses, then the interview stops right there.
But you know, but most of these kids is, you know, that works in a perfect world where you educate the children and teach them what their student rights are, and when you teach parents what their parental rights are. Y'all can adopt that policy, but I'm telling you now, I'm not for it, because as a parent of mine are grown, but I have grandchildren. If anybody did this to them and say we made an attempt is you might have went to the phone and thought about picking it up, but didn't really actually pick it up. An attempt is you might have decided to go and make an email, but the phone rang and somebody else took your attention. But hey, I made the attempt to do it. So it says an attempt. I am tired of police officers policing our schools when it's unnecessary. When it's a controllable something, I mean, if the police has to come, if somebody, that's okay, but don't railroad our children.
And I can assure you that we don't.
Well-
All of our principals do an exceptional job.
I'm not throwing off on anybody whether y'all doing a job, so don't try to throw me under the bus with these principles, because it ain't gonna work. I have a history. I have a grit history. That sounded like 45, didn't it? But anyway, I have a history, and my history ain't patting myself on the back. My history is doing the right thing. And most of these people sitting out there know that. But they also know that I am concerned about these kids and the lack of knowledge of parents and parental rights and students' rights, not just in this county, but in this country. And it's oftentimes that the kids who get railroaded are some of the poorest and whose parents don't know what to do. So they trust the system to do the right thing. And a lot of times those kids end up in jail or worse. So that's all I'm asking. It should not say make an attempt. It should say that parents will be. Because I remember Mr. Mason standing before us at a meeting, and he said that when he was principal over here, I believe he said over here, but he was principal, and he said the police came for one of his students one day because somebody said he did something. He told him, y'all can get him when he go to the house, but as long as he in my school, he's under my protection, and y'all ain't taking him nowhere. And he did not release that child. And it would be good if we had officers who had sensitivity training, common sense training, some kind of training, but you can't always rely on that. Not even in rural areas, not even in large cities. So all I'm asking us is to be conscious when we sit here and approve stuff and don't talk about it and don't read it, because it might not be your child, but then again, it might be. Because my boss says, do unto others as you have them do unto you. So my boss says, you do the right thing if you got to stand by yourself. And I don't care what y'all think about me, because you ain't got no heaven or hell to put me in. I'm going to do what my boss said every day. And if I just hope that y'all are mindful of doing the right thing.
But Ms. Freeman, this is a policy that's been in. And, I mean, you're saying what you don't want to happen, but you're not giving any suggestion on what to put in here.
Well,
So,
I have those.
If you look at if you look down through, he talks about the attempts.
Mr. Chair, can I interject 1 second?
No, not until I finish my
No,
comment.
because you're going down the road that you did not send me the agenda. I have this policy with the
You have the
markings.
agenda every month.
You a lie.
Every month, you have the opportunity
When I
to get
get
the
here,
agenda.
oh, I'm not coming down the
Well,
road to pick up no
then
doggone
you're not
agenda.
serving
You
your
a
people
lost-
very well.
Well, you ain't serving them well either, because you can mail it to them. I mean, come on,
You
man.
don't want it mailed.
Man, let me go to the house, because I ain't got time for stupid. I do a lot of stuff, but I don't do stupid no more.
So,
No,
you
no,
mentioned the
just
things that you
talk
don't
to me.
want, but what would you see
I
in
told
this
you, I
policy?
had those at the house. Didn't know the policy was gonna be back on here tonight. I had made notations, but Mr. Chair, I'm
It's-
not your
it's
wife, I'm not
only-
your mama. You wanna yell at somebody, you go home
It
and
is
yell at your
on
wife
the
and your
agenda
mama,
every
and they
month
white, they ain't black.
That you should have known that it
No,
was gonna
you should
be
know better than
for
yelling at a
the
black woman.
consent items.
So look,
All right.
For the board's pleasure, it also says on number 9 that if the school official determines it is appropriate for law enforcement authorities to interview the student at school without the presence of a parent or guardian, the school official must, and it uses the word must, remain in the room with the law enforcement agent and the student during the interview. School officials should document and take notes of all interviews of students by a law enforcement agent held in their presence. Now, since I have been in the district, I cannot say anything that happened prior to me, but knowing these principles like I do, it probably happened before then. If we have law enforcement on our campus, our students are not alone with them. We have someone else with them, whether that's a parent, whether that's a school official, just for our own determination of appropriateness, because we take care of our kids.
Is there anything that we can put in here that makes sure that that the students do know? That the principals would be required to make a statement to the student. Since your parents have not been, cannot contact your parents, you don't, it's up to you. So that they do know that they don't have to speak.
Well, it does say, let's see, was it number 7? If the parent condition consent on being present, the interview should be delayed until the parent arrives. If the student refuses to speak to law enforcement authorities, the interview may not proceed on school grounds.
Right.
So the student would have that
So I'm
opportunity.
just saying, is there something we can put in here that makes sure that the staff, tells that student? I mean, just like your Miranda rights, where you have the right. Because I don't know if they're interviewing, if they're just interviewing, I don't know that they would be told something specific by the police. So is that something that could be added? What do y'all think?
Well, on number 6, you could add that part where a school official would need to explain the rights to the students at that time. You could add that on number 6.
Yeah, at the beginning of that would probably be a good place
Okay,
to add it.
I can add that.
What are your thoughts on it, Mr. Madison?
That's fine with me.
Sir, is this, we've had our public speaking portion. Is this something specific to this incident here,
Yeah,
for this policy?
the secretary wrote down that she asked me did I want to speak, and I told her yes. And I thought she had gave it to y'all, or whatever. My name is Curtis Lee Smith. And,
No, I told you needed to come in here and fill out the form. I specifically brought you in here and told you you need to sign up so you could do public participation.
which I understood you told me, said, do you want to speak? And I told you yes.
And I told you you have to come in here and fill out the form tonight, before the meeting,
But
before 7.
I misunderstood that, though.
Well, that's what I told you.
Okay.
And so I don't have no rights to speak now.
Sir, we have a protocol that we follow. We will be breaking for executive session in a few moments, hopefully. And at that point, if you want to express your, you can, if you would come up to myself and Dr. Light and let us know the topic, if it's something that we feel that we can go with right away, or we may just tell you we need you to wait till the next month.
Next month.
Well, I'm saying we will, when we break, Dr. Light and I will talk with you, and you can tell us what your topic is at that time, and we'll decide after the executive session if we can give you that time to speak. So, all right, so continue with the other policies for review, please.
Okay. The first one is policy AF, school day and school year for students and employees. It provides definitions. It provides instructional requirements, and all of these are accurate and will stay in place as written. It provides employee requirements and the school calendar requirements. All of those are in that policy and are accurate, so they should remain in place. The next one is called grading system, which is IHA. It also provides definitions. It provides how our grading system works with an overall score of 70 and for 4th through 12th. And all of that is accurate and will remain in place. So that's the two policies for review.
Okay, the next on the agenda is your reports.
Superintendent's report to follow up with the board. ServPro was here and had cleaned up Miss Hobbins' classroom, and I just added their report to this board report, and it identifies that the closet and sound room in the music area had the appearance of microbe growth on contents prior to remediation. There appears to be no visible evidence of water intrusion which means the possible cause of microgrowth could be due to the high humidity and the lack of airflow in the area. So they cleaned everything and cleaned up the ductwork, cleaned up everything in those rooms, removed the carpet in those closets and put down tile. And I got a very nice compliment and almost a hug from Miss Hobbins for getting this cleaned up and done right. Now the next step for this is an air conditioner in her room that needs to be replaced. I contacted our architect, Craig Buckley. He recommended that we contact Caprice Baumert. I'm going to mispronounce her name, I apologize, but she's the lead mechanical engineer that they use. She came out within 2 days, identified that we need to upgrade that system. When the technology was available, when they built the school, it was what's in there now. The technology has improved to a 3-phase compressor style that allows the dehumidification to happen while the air conditioning is happening. It's a much more effective air conditioning unit, and she is actually giving us the specs so that we can provide for a fair bid of that same style, which will eliminate a lot of the humidity in that room, obviously, and we will look at that for other rooms as we continue to have, if we continue to have a problem in a different room.
Have the doors been modified to help the airflow?
The doors, to be honest, I'm not positive if they're done. I don't want to fib, but I know that they are going to modify those, and she recommended that we do modify those. So I don't know if it's been done. It is planned to be done if it's not done. So yes, we will do that as soon as possible, which is supposed to increase the airflow in those closet rooms. Yes, sir. Next item on the superintendent's report is the cafeteria floor has been completed. Miss Arthur was over there, in fact, painting the, what would you call that, the window sills around it, because she didn't like the color anymore. And they had painted, her crew had painted the wall to make the wall look as nice as now the floor looks, because it obviously had some dirt on it from children's hands, etc. So the cafeteria looks very nice, and if you get a chance, please go over there and take a look, because it looks really good. The next one down is October 16th. Our FCA student group is sponsoring a Fields of Faith at Buddy Bufford Field on the 16th of October. It starts at 7 o'clock, and there's a flyer up on the screen and also a flyer in front of the board members. And that's all I have, sir.
I need a motion to go into executive session. Second by Ms. Marks. All right, I want to call our meeting back to order. It has been recommended by the superintendent, and I make a motion that all bus drivers be paid $15 per hour from start to completion of all field trips as documented on the extracurricular trip sheet, with a deduction of 2 hours of each regular bus route, AM and PM, missed. If no bus route is missed, $15 per hour for each hour of the field trip is to be paid to the bus driver. Have a second by Ms. Barksdale. All in favor? Unanimous. It is recommended, and I make a motion that we accept the resignation of Ms. Debbie Santmeyer, effective October 26, 2019, from the elementary school. Second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Unanimous. It is recommended that we hire Mr. Randy Smith as a part-time musical theater teacher for the spring semester during second block. A second by Ms. Barksdale. All in favor? It is recommended, and I make a motion that we hire Ms. Daisha Bussey as a full-time parapro in the high school. A second by Ms. Barksdale. All in favor? Unanimous. I make a motion that we extend the current superintendent's contract 1 year through June 2021. I have a second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Anything else?
The Assembly. They've been doing internal training on Assembly,
Okay.
and they have that up to date. And then we need to turn around and do a board training for Assembly, so you guys know how to operate it. And we hope to do it in November, but I didn't want to just set a date, have them here and tell you what that date was. So can we have a date, or do you want me to send it out in an email so that we can include possibly Chris and Ms.
Yeah,
Freeman?
if you would
Is that
do that.
okay?
You can call Ms. Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
They recommended October 29th, 30th, or November 5th or 6th. So if any of those are, you know you can't do it. let
You
us
said
know.
October 29th and 30th,
29th and 30th, I cannot.
okay? November
5th or 6th.
5th or 6th.
I can do
Are either one of those okay or no?
that. Yeah, I can do.
Okay, so we're looking at November 5 or 6. Do you know if you're gonna be in town, or is that too far out?
Yeah, I don't have anything right now. so.
Okay.
I'm good with it.
All right. So I'll send out an email for 5 or 6. It just takes one day, right? In fact, I think it's only gonna be an hour, hour and a
It said like an
half.
hour. yeah,
Right.
That's all it is.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be long.
It's
We'll
just
try and do it early so that you can scamper off to work if that works better for you.
I've got a class, I've got to be in those 2 days.
5 and 6, okay?
Oh, no, October 29th and 30th.
Yeah, we're only looking at 5, 6 right now.
Okay, yeah, 5, 6, that's fine.
Okay. Would morning work better for you, or would afternoon work better?
It doesn't matter, whatever work for the group. It's
Okay. Okay. Okay.
All right.
That's it.
We have a motion by Mr. Basson to adjourn, second by Ms. Barksdale.